Teresa Guidice called out while cooking red sauce. You used jarred sauce. The Real Housewives of New Jersey star Teresa Guidice can't catch a break. However, her recent social media video has made people wonder about her authenticity. Being Italian and cooking has always been a part of the show. Elaborate dinners, pasta, and cookbooks have been a part of the Bravo hit for over a decade. Recently, Teresa popped up on TikTok to show followers how to make red sauce, but it didn't go over as well as she thought it would. She asked her followers to cook with me while showing them the steps she used to make dinner for the family. The RHONJ star said she was making red sauce, but the comment section lit up when she pulled out the jarred sauce. Teresa Guidice called out for using jarred sauce. After chopping onions and garlic and sautéing them in olive oil, Teresa Guidice made the sauce. She pulled a jar of sauce and added it to the pot, which caused followers to question what the Real Housewives of New Jersey star was doing. One follower asked, "Wait, you used jarred sauce?" Another posted, "Thought you were making red sauce." "I just seen you use a jar of sauce." Teresa replied, "I told you I went to Trader Joe's, so I bought everything from there." Will Teresa Guidice return to RHONJ for season 15? After a chaotic season 14 of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, the series is on hiatus as the network decides what to do with the series. Teresa Guidice is the OG of RHONJ. Without her, the show may not have as much appeal as it did. No news is expected until the end of the year or early 2025, but a total reboot isn't out of the question. Andy Cohen has been back and forth about what could happen with the show. Some viewers want to see Melissa Gorga and Rachel Fuda back, calling them the only cast we need. If we had to guess, Teresa Guidice would be back, but her bestie, Jennifer Aydin, may not. Season 14 was riddled with back and forth between Jennifer and Danielle Cabral, and both could be a liability moving forward. Despite Rachel and Teresa's differences, the two can film together without violence, which is a plus. The sticking point will likely be whether Margaret Josephs returns, and who else is asked back. For now, though, Teresa is focused on spending time with her daughters and husband, and on her podcast. It was a warm, bustling afternoon in the Guidice household, the familiar scent of garlic and fresh herbs filling the air. Teresa Guidice was standing at the stove, her hands working swiftly as she stirred a pot of her famous red sauce, a recipe passed down from her mother and refined over the years by her own hands. She was a woman of tradition, a believer in the art of cooking from scratch. The kitchen was her domain, and nothing, not even the most well-meaning guest, could ever disrupt her process. Her daughters, Gia, Gabriella, Melania, and Adriana, were gathered around the kitchen table, snacking on fresh bread and talking about school. They were used to their mother's fiery personality, but on this particular day, there was an extra spark in her eyes. Teresa had just put the finishing touches on her sauce, carefully adding basil leaves, a touch of sugar, and a dash of salt. The smell was intoxicating, filling the room with warmth and nostalgia. It was the sauce she made every Sunday, the sauce that had become a family tradition for as long as she could remember. As she stirred the pot, her hand brushing against the wooden spoon, she noticed her sister-in-law, Melissa Gorga, casually walking into the kitchen. Melissa had a big smile on her face, clearly excited about the meal Teresa was preparing. But as she opened the pantry door and reached for something on the shelf, Teresa froze. Melissa held up a jar of marinara sauce, the label proudly displaying the words tomato sauce, home style. Teresa's face turned from a smile to a tight-lipped frown. It was as if time itself had slowed, the sound of the spoon stirring the sauce now deafening in the silence between them. For a moment, Teresa simply stared at the jar, unable to believe what she was seeing. "You used jarred sauce?" Teresa asked, her voice calm, but with an edge to it that made everyone in the room stop and listen. Her hand rested on the edge of the stove, her eyes narrowed. Melissa, unaware of the brewing storm, smiled brightly. Oh, it's just for a little extra flavor, You know, a shortcut for the busy days. Teresa's eyes widened, her jaw tightening as she set the wooden spoon down on the counter with a soft clink. She took a step toward Melissa, her voice rising with each word. Shortcut? You think you can just... She stopped herself, taking a deep breath. You think you can just take a shortcut with my sauce? My red sauce, the one I've been making for years, from scratch, like my mama taught me. No, Melissa, that's not how it works. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Gia, Gabriella, Melania, and Adriana watched as their mother's face turned a shade redder, her passion for cooking as fiery as ever. Teresa's hands flew up in the air in exasperation. Look, I don't care if you're busy. We're all busy. But when it comes to my sauce, you don't cut corners. You don't take the easy way out. It's disrespectful to the family. You're telling me that after all these years of cooking from scratch, you want to open a jar. A jar, Melissa. Teresa's voice cracked, and for a moment, she sounded like she was on the verge of tears. It's just wrong. You can't do that. Melissa, her smile now replaced with a sheepish expression, held up her hands defensively. Teresa, it's just a little jarred sauce. It's not like it's the end of the world. Teresa shook her head, pacing back and forth in front of the stove, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. You don't get it, do you? It's not about the sauce. It's about tradition. It's about family. This is how we do it. We don't take shortcuts. You don't just buy a jar and call it a day. You put love into the sauce. You chop the garlic yourself. You let it simmer for hours, and you let it fill the house with the smell of home. That's what we do. Gia, sensing the tension rising, slowly stood up from the table and walked over to her mother, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Mom, it's okay. Melissa didn't mean anything by it. Teresa took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She glanced at her daughter, her expression softening just slightly. But she wasn't finished. Not yet. No, Gia, it's not okay. Teresa continued, her voice a little calmer now, but still filled with conviction. If we start letting things slip, if we start taking shortcuts, then what's next? Are we going to stop making Sunday sauce altogether? Are we going to stop sitting at the table, laughing, eating, and sharing our lives with each other? It's not just about the food. It's about everything that comes with it. The memories, the love. Melissa, now genuinely remorseful, set the jar down on the counter and walked over to Teresa. I get it, I do. I didn't mean to disrespect you or your tradition, I'm sorry. Teresa's gaze softened, though there was still a fire in her eyes. You better be sorry. You don't mess with my sauce. Ever. The tension in the room slowly dissipated, and the girls, relieved to see the storm pass, exchanged quiet glances. Teresa turned back to the stove, her hands gently picking up the wooden spoon again. She resumed stirring the sauce, though the silence between them now felt different, calmer, as if everyone was just waiting for the next step. So what do we do now? Melissa asked, her voice quieter. Teresa smiled slightly, a playful glint returning to her eyes. Well, now we make the sauce together. You can chop the garlic, and I'll do the rest. But we're doing it my way, capes? Capes, Melissa agreed, grinning sheepishly. And with that, the family came together in the kitchen, working side by side. The simmering red sauce on the stove became a symbol of more than just food. It was a symbol of love, tradition, and the importance of sticking to what matters most. even if it meant calling out someone for using jarred sauce.